How you doing, guys, today? And today I wanted to introduce you to the second video in our Glock Armorer series of Glock Perfection. This is going to be the safe action system for Glock pistols. I'm actually a certified Glock Armorer, certified NRA instructor, certified range officer, also certified in small arms and defense in the home. But I want to go through and just show I've developed this series of videos and slides just to give you an introduction to Glocks, what not to do. I know there's a lot of people modifying them and do a lot of different things, but I just want to show you the video and give you the information how it's to be done right, as the factory says. And then you can make your own decisions. Don't forget there's a lot of legalities in guns, modifying them and changing them, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where a lawyer can rape you, and you can have some major problems, because if you modify your gun and you get into a altercation with it and you have to use it and maybe you have to shoot somebody or something like that, when they go to Glock, Glock is not going to take the brunt of it. When you go there with your lawyer, Glock's going to say, well, they modified the gun, we don't recommend that that's done, we don't ship it like that. So then you're going to have another can of beans with ammunition, with changing parts and stuff like that. Plus, you also, the reliability of your gun, you're going to decrease, because Glocks are they're not like range guns for like matches and stuff and competition. They are what they are. They're down in the dirty, defensive guns. And another note, the more you use the Glocks, the more the parts wear in, and the smoother your trigger pull will get. Also, I wanted to bring this up. A Glock is a double action gun only. It's only double action, according to double action, because the first, when you're pulling the trigger, it will energize the firing pin. The second pull, after that first pre-travel, will fire the gun. That's what they consider double action. Okay. But let's go ahead and start the course, and we'll start on the first slide, which is going to be the safe action system. Now, the safe action system is a series of 3 different safeties that are designed inherently automatically in the gun. There is a drop safety, and you can follow my pointer. This is the drop safety, that if you drop it, it prevents it from going off. You can see how the it's called a cruciform, rests on top of here, and it pushes up, and it kind of just holds against it so that really the striker can't really go forward. There is another part here, which is your firing pin safety, or sometimes called your safety plunger. You can see it consists of a little plunger with a little spring. A lot of people on these modify these and take different plungers, which are more rounded on the bottom, like a bowl, so there's less contact and surface area for the trigger bar to push up, push this up. They also changed the springs and put lighter springs in these firing pin safeties, which is a no-no, because a lighter spring, okay, then when it can get stuck up, there's less resistance when this goes up in here. And if you have a firing pin with a stronger spring than the firing pin safety, this will go forward, and you can see what happens. If the firing pin stays out of there, it'll be almost like one of your old Mac 11s that just had the little point for a firing pin, and it'll just go back and forth into an auto mode, and that can happen. Also, back in this part here, where your cruciform is, and at the end of the striker here, these 2 surfaces, right about here and here, on each edge, if you sand them out and polish them too much, then they will slide, and they won't. They can go into a automatic. So these 2 parts in particular, you want to just leave them alone. If you want to make it fancy, your plunger, get it coated or plated or whatever, but there's no need to change the springs in them at all. Some people go crazy and change the firing pin spring. They go and polish all this in here. They change the plunger to a different one, and most of the plungers you buy, the third-party ones, are going to be garbage. A lot of them are titanium ones, are plated, and they chip and they peel, and the springs are substandards. and that the gun is designed the way it is for a reason. The next part here is you can see your trigger safety. Now that has this little yellow part. Well, when you push that in, this unlocks it so you can go forward. Then this part right here will go push up the plunger, and as this does it, it pushes the cruciform, rides on it, and as this compresses the spring, this will go forward and fire. But you've got to be very careful in that. So let's go ahead and look at the firing pin safety, which engaged, and this is just a close-up, and it can show you how that is. Okay, and don't forget this little nub here on the trigger bar. When this goes forward, pushes this up, and still some stuff's going on the other end where the cruciform is at the back of the striker, but this goes up and allows this notch for the firing pin to go forward and ignite your primer. You don't want to put too much pressure either, because if you put too powerful of a spring, besides going by this, it can also rupture the primer, actually cut a hole in it, because some primers are getting thinner, and if it does that, then you're going to get gases in here, and it's going to foul all this up. And you see these little end caps, these plastic end caps, are pretty important, because you can get them all. You can actually get them burnt from the heat. So let's go to the next one, and as we see, that's the firing pin engaged. So let's go to the trigger safety engaged, and as we get a close-up, we can see this is how this is engaged. When you push the trigger down, right, this little part, this rides up, disengages it. Now we'll go back to the drop safety here, because we haven't really, I don't think we talked about it. The drop safety, and I'm going to actually just kind of get you a little bit more in depth on it. This is the rear part of the trigger bar, which has a cruciform, like a crucifix, this part here. It rests with both arms on top of the drop safety shelf. There's a shelf here, okay? When the trigger is pulled to the rear, the trigger bar begins to move. It's forced downwards and rearwards by the connector, which is this right here. When this goes, this forces it down. And during the slide cycling, the connector is pushed inward by a cam. Now that's all you really need to know. I don't want to go in depth, but I'll have some videos with animations on them, so you'll actually see them a little bit better. But that's actually how that works. So let's go to our next slide here. And our next slide, Glock safe function. Glock pistols that have been designed with many features with the shooter in mind. Aftermarket parts, they can change the design, fit, and function of the pistol, and you can open yourself to a wide area of liability. Glock pistols, designed to be safe and very reliable. Modifications to the safe action system can actually cause improper operation and failures of the firearm. You should also always use Glock OEM parts. One way of reducing trigger pull on a Glock, it is recommended to change the trigger, spring, and the connector. You can usually get a OEM Glock parts right on eBay, factory parts. They're a little bit more. You may pay $6 or $7 more than like a Ghost connector, but they're worth it. And you can get 3.5 pounds. They still make them. And then you can put something like a New York 1 trigger in there. So then you're going to get pretty good function, and it'll be pretty reliable. Or you can just change your connector to a 3.5. But it's not really meant to change the internal trigger springs, other than like maybe a New York 1 trigger, because then you can open yourself with these aftermarket parts. Really have a lot of major problems. I recommend always use Glock OEM parts, because if you ever have a problem and you're in an altercation and something happens and you have to go to court, the lawyers will eat you alive. They'll say, oh, he did this, he polished this, he changed all the springs, and it might be something small, but if they bring Glock into it, if it's a serious case where somebody got killed and they bring somebody from the factory in to make sure the gun wasn't modified, or you're not using the wrong, different ammunition, like real crazy ammunition, radioactive nuclear ammunition, well, they would say, oh, well, he did this, he modified this, he modified the functionality of the gun, and then they'll say you're unsafe, you're carrying an unsafe modified gun. You don't want to bring yourself into it. you can do modifications, but I highly recommend, you use some common sense. Okay, guys, I hope this was interesting and educational for you. I'm gonna try to have other videos for everybody, so please stay tuned to my Glock Armorer, Glock Perfection, and thanks for watching, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.